Right now, as you listen to this, you're taking approximately 12 to 16 breaths per minute. But here's what's fascinating. Every single one of those breaths might be limiting your access to the deepest layers of reality itself. Recent research suggests that the way most of us breathe could be inadvertently blocking quantum processes that occur naturally in our brains. It sounds impossible, but stay with me, because what we're about to explore might change how you think about something as simple and fundamental as breathing. Welcome to another journey into the mysteries that surround us. I'm here to guide you through ideas that sit at the beautiful intersection of science and wonder, where the practical meets the profound. Today, we're venturing into territory that bridges ancient wisdom and cutting-edge physics, a place where your next breath might be more significant than you've ever imagined. If you're new here, you've found a quiet corner of the internet where we explore the deeper patterns that weave through existence. We move slowly, think deeply, and ask the kinds of questions that don't have simple answers. And to those who've been on this journey with me before, welcome back. Your presence makes this exploration richer. Now settle in, get comfortable. What we're about to discover together involves some of the most groundbreaking research emerging from quantum consciousness studies. And it all begins with something you're doing right now, probably without thinking about it, something you've been doing wrong your entire life. Take a moment to notice your breathing right now. Don't change it, just observe. Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? How fast, how deep? If you're like most people in the modern world, there's a good chance you're breathing in a way that's fundamentally limiting your physiology, and possibly much more. Here's what we've discovered. The vast majority of us are chronic mouth breathers, taking 12 to 20 breaths per minute, when we should be taking closer to 8 to 12. This isn't just a minor inefficiency. Research shows that mouth breathing creates a cascade of physiological changes that affect everything from oxygen delivery to brain function. When you breathe through your mouth, you lose too much carbon dioxide. Now that might sound like a good thing, but carbon dioxide isn't just waste. It's a crucial catalyst that tells your blood to release oxygen to your cells. Without adequate CO2 levels, your blood holds onto oxygen more tightly, meaning less actually reaches your brain, your muscles, and your organs. The result? You're breathing more, but accessing less of what you need. But here's where it gets truly interesting, and where we begin to touch the edges of something much more profound. Those altered CO2 levels, that changed pattern of oxygenation, might be affecting processes in your brain that operate at the quantum level. Now I want to pause here for a moment. When we talk about quantum effects in biological systems, we're entering territory that's still being mapped by science. These are speculative ideas, not proven scientific facts. But the research is compelling enough that some of the world's leading consciousness researchers are taking it seriously. The theory goes like this. Consciousness itself might arise from quantum processes occurring in the microtubules inside your brain cells. These microscopic structures, smaller than anything you could see with a regular microscope, might be processing information in ways that classical physics can't explain. They might be creating what physicists call superposition states, where multiple possibilities exist simultaneously until they collapse into a single experience. And your breathing, the simple act of drawing air in and out, might be directly influencing how well these quantum processes can function. Let's step back and explore what we mean when we talk about quantum consciousness. This isn't science fiction, though it might sound like it. This is a serious scientific framework developed by researchers like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, who've spent decades investigating how quantum mechanics might explain the mystery of conscious experience. Their theory, called orchestrated objective reduction, or OR, suggests that consciousness arises when quantum information processing in microtubules reaches a threshold and collapses into classical neural activity. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain contains billions of tiny quantum computers, each processing multiple possibilities simultaneously until they suddenly snap into a single, definite state. That moment of collapse they propose is when conscious experience occurs. Now, here's where breathing becomes crucial. These quantum processes are incredibly delicate. They require specific conditions to maintain what physicists call coherence, the ability for quantum systems to exist in multiple states at once. Anything that disrupts the cellular environment, anything that changes the chemistry of your brain, could potentially interfere with these processes. And what affects brain chemistry more directly and immediately than the way you breathe? When you mouth breathe, you create a state of chronic hyperventilation. Your CO2 levels drop, your blood becomes more alkaline, and blood flow to your brain actually decreases. The very regions of your brain involved in self-awareness, visual processing, and time perception receive less oxygen, not more. But when you breathe properly through your nose, at a slower, deeper rhythm, something remarkable happens. Your body produces nitric oxide in your nasal passages. This molecule, which you can only access through nasal breathing, doesn't just improve oxygen delivery. Nitric oxide is what scientists call a quantum active molecule. Some interpretations suggest it might actually facilitate the kind of coherent quantum processes that consciousness research is investigating. As you listen to this, I invite you to experiment. Close your mouth gently and breathe only through your nose. Slow your breathing down. Notice how it feels different. You're not just changing your physiology. You might be optimizing the very conditions that allow quantum processes in your brain to function. There's something almost poetic about carbon dioxide's role in consciousness. We've been taught to think of it as waste, something to get rid of as quickly as possible. But in reality, CO2 might be one of the most important molecules for accessing deeper states of awareness. Carbon dioxide is what triggers the release of oxygen from your blood. It's called the Bohr effect, and it's fundamental to how your body actually uses the air you breathe. But beyond its role in oxygen transport, CO2 appears to be crucial for maintaining the delicate chemical balance that allows quantum coherence in biological systems. When your CO2 levels are optimal, achieved through proper nasal breathing, something fascinating happens in your brain. The pH balance shifts into a range that some researchers believe might be ideal for maintaining quantum superposition states in microtubules. Your brain essentially becomes a better quantum computer. This isn't just theoretical. We can measure these effects. When people practice specific breathing techniques that optimize CO2 levels, we see changes in brainwave patterns, alterations in neural connectivity, and shifts in consciousness that practitioners describe as profound and transformative. The Wim Hof method, for instance, uses controlled hyperventilation followed by breath retention to create temporary states of hypoxia and altered CO2 levels. Practitioners report experiences that sound remarkably similar to what quantum consciousness theories might predict. Expanded awareness, altered perception of time and space, and a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. Now, I want to be clear, these are subjective experiences, and the connection to quantum processes remains speculative. But the fact that controlled changes in breathing can produce such profound shifts in consciousness suggests there might be something deeper happening than we previously understood. The paradox is this: By trying to breathe more, by mouth breathing and hyperventilating, we might actually be limiting our access to the full spectrum of consciousness. By slowing down, by breathing less but more efficiently, we might be opening doorways to quantum reality that we didn't even know existed. Your nose, it turns out, is far more than just an air filter. It's a sophisticated biological laboratory that produces molecules essential for optimal brain function and, potentially, quantum consciousness. When you breathe through your nose, your sinuses produce nitric oxide. This remarkable molecule does far more than just improve oxygen delivery, though it does that beautifully, increasing oxygen efficiency by about 18% compared to mouth breathing. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, opening blood vessels and improving circulation throughout your body and brain. But here's what makes nitric oxide particularly interesting from a quantum perspective. It's a free radical molecule with unpaired electrons. In quantum biology, unpaired electrons are significant because they can exist in quantum superposition states and potentially facilitate quantum information processing in biological systems. Some interpretations suggest that nitric oxide might serve as a kind of quantum messenger, carrying information between different parts of your brain in ways that classical biochemistry can't fully explain. When you mouth breathe, you miss out on this entirely. There's no nitric oxide production, no quantum messaging system, no optimization of the conditions that might allow your brain to access its full quantum potential. The research on nasal breathing reveals effects that go far beyond simple oxygenation. In controlled studies, people breathing through their nose show improved cognitive function, better emotional regulation, and enhanced states of coherence between their heart, brain, and nervous system. That last point is particularly important. Coherence in this context doesn't just mean harmony. It refers to a specific state where different biological systems synchronize their rhythms, creating what physicists might recognize as constructive interference patterns. When your breathing, heart rate, and brain waves align, you create the kind of ordered, coherent biological state that quantum processes might require to function optimally. Take a moment now to notice your breathing again. Are you still breathing through your nose? Can you feel the subtle difference in how the air moves, how your body responds? This isn't just about better health, though that's certainly part of it. This might be about accessing capacities of consciousness that most of us have been inadvertently blocking our entire lives. There's a beautiful phenomenon that happens when you breathe at approximately 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Your heart rate begins to oscillate in perfect rhythm with your breath, creating what researchers call heart rate variability coherence. But this might be more than just a pleasant physiological state. It might be a window into quantum resonance in biological systems. When you achieve this coherent breathing pattern, something remarkable happens in your autonomic nervous system. The usual chaotic fluctuations in heart rate transform into smooth, sine wave-like oscillations. Your heart, brain, and respiratory system begin to function as a unified, coherent system rather than separate, competing processes. From a quantum perspective, this coherence is fascinating. Coherence is precisely what quantum systems need to maintain superposition, states, and process information in ways that classical physics can't explain. When your biological systems achieve coherence, you might be creating the optimal conditions for quantum processes in your brain to function. This isn't just theoretical. We can measure these coherent states, and when people achieve them through proper breathing techniques, They report enhanced intuition, improved decision-making, and access to what they describe as expanded states of awareness. Some interpretations suggest these might be the subjective experiences of quantum information processing becoming accessible to consciousness. The autonomic nervous system, which regulates all your unconscious biological processes, might serve as the primary interface between conscious control and quantum biological processes. Through breathing, you can consciously influence systems that were previously thought to be completely automatic. This ability to bridge conscious intention and unconscious quantum processes might be one of the most significant discoveries in consciousness research. As we continue this exploration, remember that you're not just listening to ideas about breathing and quantum reality, you're actively participating in the process. Each breath you take right now is an opportunity to experiment with these concepts, to feel for yourself what changes when you optimize the way you breathe. And this is just the beginning. What we've explored so far reveals how your breathing patterns might be affecting quantum processes in your brain, but there's so much more to discover. The implications stretch into realms of consciousness, reality, and human potential that we're only beginning to understand. Imagine for a moment that inside each of your brain cells exists a vast network of highways, smaller than anything visible to the naked eye, yet possibly more complex than the internet itself. These structures, called microtubules, form the skeleton of your neurons, but they might be doing something far more extraordinary than simply providing structural support. They might be the hardware upon which consciousness itself runs. The microtubule theory of consciousness, developed over decades by researchers like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggests that these cellular structures could be processing information in quantum superposition states. Think of each microtubule as containing thousands of protein molecules called tubulins, each capable of existing in multiple configurations simultaneously until something causes them to collapse into a definite state. What's particularly fascinating is how this quantum processing might be influenced by the cellular environment around these microtubules. The pH levels, the concentration of various ions, the availability of oxygen, all of these factors could potentially affect whether quantum coherence can be maintained in these biological quantum computers. And here's where your breathing patterns become crucial in ways we never previously imagined. When you breathe improperly, when you mouth breathe and chronically hyperventilate, you're not just affecting your blood chemistry. You might be disrupting the delicate conditions necessary for quantum information processing in your brain. As you're listening to this, take a moment to feel the air moving through your nose. Notice how different it feels from mouth breathing. This isn't just about comfort or health. This is speculative territory, of course, but you might be optimizing the cellular environment that allows these quantum processes to function. The implications are staggering. If consciousness does arise from quantum processes in microtubules, and if breathing patterns can influence these processes, then the way you breathe might literally be determining the depth and quality of your conscious experience. Every breath could be either opening or closing doorways to expanded awareness. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for quantum theories of consciousness comes from an unexpected source: anesthesia research. Scientists have discovered that the drugs which reliably turn consciousness on and off seem to work by disrupting quantum processes in microtubules. Recent studies have shown that anesthetic gases don't just affect neural firing patterns. They appear to interfere with quantum coherence in the very cellular structures that quantum consciousness theories point to as the source of awareness. When these quantum processes are disrupted, consciousness fades. When they're restored, awareness returns. But here's what makes this particularly relevant to our exploration of breathing. The way anesthetics work bears a striking resemblance to what happens when you chronically mouth breathe and hyperventilate. Both create alterations in brain chemistry that could potentially disrupt quantum coherence. Think about it this way. When you're under anesthesia, your breathing is often artificially controlled. Your natural respiratory rhythms are overridden. The delicate balance of gases in your blood is altered, and consciousness disappears. When you chronically mouth breathe, you're creating a milder but persistent version of some of these same chemical changes. This is speculative thinking, but it raises a profound question. Could improper breathing be creating a kind of mild chronic interference with the quantum processes that generate consciousness? Could learning to breathe properly be like clearing static from a radio signal, allowing the full depth of awareness to come through more clearly? The research on xenon gas anesthesia is particularly intriguing here. Scientists found that different isotopes of xenon, identical chemically but different in their quantum spin properties, had different anesthetic effects. This suggests that quantum properties directly influence consciousness in ways that classical chemistry alone cannot explain. Your breath moving in and out right now is changing the quantum environment in your brain with every cycle. The question becomes, are you optimizing that environment for expanded consciousness or inadvertently limiting it? There's something almost magical about the autonomic nervous system. It's the part of your biology that runs automatically, controlling your heartbeat, digestion, temperature regulation, and countless other processes without any conscious input from you. Or so we used to think. What we've discovered is that breathing serves as a bridge between conscious control and these supposedly automatic processes. Through conscious breath work, you can influence your heart rate variability, your stress response, even your immune function. You can consciously access systems that were thought to be completely beyond voluntary control. This ability to bridge conscious and unconscious processes might be more significant than we've realized. If quantum consciousness theories are correct, this bridge between voluntary and involuntary systems might be exactly the interface needed to consciously influence quantum processes in the brain. Consider what happens during advanced breathing practices. Practitioners report experiences that sound remarkably similar to what quantum theories might predict. Altered perception of time, expanded awareness, feelings of unity with larger patterns of existence. These subjective reports, while not scientific proof, align intriguingly with what we might expect if breathing practices were optimizing quantum coherence in consciousness-generating systems. The sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of your autonomic nervous system might serve as quantum switches, determining whether your brain operates in a state conducive to quantum coherence or one that favors classical neural processing. When you activate the parasympathetic response through proper breathing, you might be literally switching your brain into a mode where quantum consciousness processes can function optimally. As you continue breathing slowly through your nose, notice any changes in how your body feels. That sense of calm, that feeling of settling, might be more than just relaxation. It might be your nervous system shifting into a state that allows deeper layers of consciousness to emerge. There's a particular breathing rhythm that seems to unlock something special in human physiology. When you breathe at approximately 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, creating a respiratory rate of about 6 breaths per minute, you begin to resonate with what researchers call your body's natural coherence frequency. At this rhythm, something beautiful happens. Your heart rate variability begins to show smooth sine wave patterns. Your blood pressure oscillations synchronize with your breathing. Even your brain waves begin to entrain to this rhythm. You create what physicists would recognize as a coherent system, where multiple oscillators synchronize their frequencies. This coherence might be more than just physiologically beneficial. Some interpretations suggest it could be creating the kind of ordered, stable environment that quantum processes require to function in warm, noisy biological systems. When your body achieves this coherent state, you might be providing optimal conditions for quantum consciousness processes to emerge. The measurement of this coherence has revealed something remarkable. People in coherent states show enhanced intuitive abilities, improved emotional regulation, and access to what they describe as expanded awareness. While we can't definitively say these experiences result from quantum processes, the correlation is intriguing enough to warrant serious investigation. Try this rhythm now if you're comfortable doing so. Breathe in slowly for 5 seconds, then out for 5 seconds. Notice how this feels different from your normal breathing pattern. You're not just oxygenating your body differently. You might be tuning your entire biological system to a frequency that allows deeper aspects of consciousness to function. This resonance breathing appears to create a state where the normal boundaries between different physiological systems begin to dissolve. Heart, brain, and breath function as a unified field rather than separate systems. This unified field effect might be exactly what quantum consciousness processes need to emerge from the cellular level into conscious experience. There are breathing techniques so powerful they can induce experiences that practitioners describe as profoundly consciousness-altering. Holotropic breathwork, developed by psychiatrist Stanislav Grof, uses accelerated breathing patterns to create altered states of consciousness that some describe as psychedelic in nature, achieved through breath alone. What's happening physiologically during these practices is fascinating and complex. The accelerated breathing initially floods the system with oxygen, while simultaneously reducing carbon dioxide levels. This creates a temporary state of alkalosis, altering brain chemistry in ways that can produce profound shifts in consciousness. But here's what's particularly intriguing from a quantum perspective. The initial hyperventilation is followed by periods where practitioners naturally hold their breath, creating cycles of altered oxygenation and CO2 levels. These cycles might be creating the kind of dynamic, changing cellular environment that some interpretations suggest could enhance quantum coherence in biological systems. During these practices, people report experiences that align remarkably with what quantum consciousness theories might predict. Feelings of expanded identity, perception of multiple realities simultaneously, and access to information that seems to transcend normal sensory channels. While these remain subjective experiences, their consistency across cultures and individuals suggests something significant might be happening. The brain imaging studies of people engaged in intensive breathwork show decreased blood flow to areas involved in self-awareness and time perception. The same regions that quantum consciousness theories suggest might be involved in processing quantum information. This correlation, while not proof, offers another intriguing piece of the puzzle. This is important to note. These are powerful practices that should be approached with appropriate caution and guidance, but they demonstrate that breathing techniques can produce profound alterations in consciousness, suggesting that our breath might indeed be a more powerful tool for accessing expanded awareness than we've previously understood. From an evolutionary standpoint, the relationship between breathing and consciousness becomes even more intriguing. Our ancestors developed complex breathing practices thousands of years ago, long before we understood quantum mechanics or neuroscience. Yoga traditions speak of pranayama, the extension of life force through breath. Taoist practices describe breathing techniques for cultivating consciousness and longevity. How did ancient cultures discover that specific breathing patterns could alter consciousness? One possibility is that they intuitively recognize something that modern science is only beginning to understand. That breath serves as a bridge between ordinary awareness and expanded states of consciousness. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, then these ancient practices might have been inadvertently optimizing the conditions for quantum processes in the brain. The techniques passed down through generations might be sophisticated technologies for accessing quantum reality, disguised as simple breathing exercises. This perspective suggests that human consciousness might be designed to access quantum information processing, but that modern lifestyle factors, including our breathing patterns, might be interfering with these natural capacities. Chronic mouth breathing, stress-induced hyperventilation, and the rapid, shallow breathing common in our fast-paced culture might all be limiting our access to the full spectrum of human consciousness. The evolutionary implications are profound. If proper breathing techniques can enhance quantum coherence in consciousness-generating systems, then learning to breathe correctly might not just improve health and well-being. It might be essential for accessing the full potential of human consciousness. As you continue listening, breathing slowly and deeply through your nose, consider that you might be engaging in one of humanity's oldest technologies for consciousness exploration. Each breath might be a small step toward reclaiming capacities that are naturally yours, but have been obscured by modern living patterns. We're standing at the edge of a scientific revolution in our understanding of consciousness. Recent experimental work is beginning to provide evidence that quantum effects might indeed play a role in biological systems, including potentially in the generation of conscious experience. Research teams around the world are developing increasingly sophisticated ways to test whether quantum processes occur in living systems. They're using techniques from quantum optics to look for quantum coherence in biological molecules. They're studying how quantum properties of anesthetic gases affect consciousness. They're even exploring whether quantum entanglement might explain the unity of conscious experience. The experimental evidence is still emerging, and much of what we've discussed remains speculative. But the early results are intriguing enough that major research institutions are investing significant resources in quantum biology and consciousness research. We may be on the verge of discoveries that could revolutionize our understanding of what it means to be conscious. What makes this particularly relevant to breathing research is that respiratory patterns offer one of the most accessible ways to test these theories. If quantum processes in the brain are sensitive to the cellular environment, and if breathing patterns significantly affect that environment, then breathing techniques should predictably influence quantum coherence measures in consciousness research. Future studies might be able to measure quantum coherence in brain tissue directly, while people practice different breathing techniques. We might be able to correlate specific breathing patterns with measurable quantum effects in consciousness-generating systems. This could provide the experimental evidence needed to move quantum consciousness theories from speculation to established science. In the meantime, your own experience serves as a kind of ongoing experiment. As you optimize your breathing patterns, as you notice changes in awareness and perception, You're gathering data about the relationship between breath and consciousness. While this subjective data isn't scientific proof, it contributes to our growing understanding of these profound connections. The frontier of consciousness research is expanding rapidly, and breathing practices might prove to be one of our most valuable tools for exploring the deepest mysteries of awareness and reality. Each breath you take participates in this grand exploration of what it means to be conscious in a quantum universe. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, something extraordinary is happening inside your brain that most people never consider. Within each of your neurons, billions of protein molecules are arranging themselves in patterns that might hold the key to consciousness itself. These patterns, emerging and dissolving faster than thought, could be the physical foundation of every experience you've ever had. The proteins I'm referring to are called tubulins, and they form the structural highways we know as microtubules. But recent research suggests these cellular components might be doing something far more sophisticated than simply holding your neurons together. Some interpretations propose they might be creating quantum information processing networks inside your brain, networks that could be extraordinarily sensitive to the chemical environment created by your breathing patterns. When tubulins arrange themselves into microtubules, they create hollow cylinders with specific geometric properties. These structures contain what physicists call hydrophobic pockets, regions where electrons can potentially exist in quantum superposition states. Think of it as creating tiny spaces inside your brain cells where the normal rules of classical physics might not apply. Now, this is where the connection to breathing becomes particularly fascinating. The quantum coherence that might allow these electron clouds to maintain superposition states appears to be incredibly sensitive to the cellular environment around them. pH levels, ion concentrations, the availability of specific molecules, all of these factors could potentially influence whether quantum processes can occur in these biological systems. When you breathe properly through your nose at a slower rhythm, you're not just optimizing oxygen delivery. You might be creating the precise chemical conditions that allow these quantum processes to function. The pH balance shifts, the concentration of various ions changes, and the overall cellular environment becomes more conducive to maintaining quantum coherence. This remains speculative, but it's speculative thinking based on serious scientific investigation. Research teams are developing increasingly sophisticated methods to detect quantum effects in biological systems, and some early results suggest that quantum coherence might indeed be possible in the warm, noisy environment of living cells. As you breathe right now, imagine that each inhalation is potentially fine-tuning billions of microscopic quantum computers throughout your brain. Each exhalation might be clearing away chemical interference that could disrupt these delicate processes. This isn't proven science, but it's a possibility that transforms something as simple as breathing into an act of consciousness optimization. There's a profound mystery at the heart of consciousness research that might be directly related to how quantum processes could function in your brain. It's called the binding problem, and it addresses one of the most fundamental questions about conscious experience. How does your brain integrate billions of separate neural events into the unified, coherent experience of being you? Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is processing visual information, auditory input, memories, emotions, and countless other data streams simultaneously. Yet somehow, all of this disparate information comes together into a single, unified experience of consciousness. Classical neuroscience struggles to explain how this integration happens, but quantum theories offer an intriguing possibility. If microtubules throughout your brain can maintain quantum entanglement with each other, they might be able to share information instantaneously across vast networks of neurons. Quantum entanglement, where particles remain mysteriously connected regardless of distance, could potentially solve the binding problem by allowing different parts of your brain to function as a single, unified quantum system. This is highly speculative, but it suggests that the quantum processes potentially occurring in your brain might not just generate consciousness, they might be what creates the unified nature of conscious experience itself. And if these processes are sensitive to the chemical environment created by your breathing patterns, then the way you breathe might literally be affecting the unity and coherence of your conscious experience. When you breathe shallowly and rapidly through your mouth, you create chemical conditions that could potentially interfere with quantum entanglement between different brain regions. When you breathe slowly and deeply through your nose, you might be optimizing the conditions that allow your brain to function as a single, unified quantum information processing system. Take a moment now to notice the unified nature of your current experience. You're hearing these words, but you're also aware of your body, your environment, your thoughts and feelings, all simultaneously integrated into a single stream of consciousness. If quantum theories prove correct, this integration might depend on quantum processes that your breathing patterns could be influencing right now. This perspective suggests that consciousness isn't just something your brain produces, it might be something your brain participates in, a quantum field effect that emerges when the right conditions are present. And those conditions might be more under your conscious control than you've ever imagined. Time itself might behave differently in quantum consciousness processes, and this has profound implications for understanding how breathing patterns could influence your subjective experience of reality. In quantum mechanics, time doesn't always flow in the linear fashion we experience in everyday life. Quantum systems can exist in superposition states where multiple temporal possibilities coexist until something causes them to collapse into a definite sequence. Some interpretations of quantum consciousness suggest that your brain might be processing information in ways that transcend normal temporal limitations. If consciousness arises from quantum processes in microtubules, then your subjective experience of time might be fundamentally different from the mechanical ticking of clocks. This could explain why certain breathing practices can produce such profound alterations in time perception. When practitioners engage in intensive breathwork, they often report experiences where time seems to slow down, speed up, or become irrelevant altogether. If these practices are optimizing quantum coherence in consciousness-generating systems, then they might be allowing access to quantum temporal processing that normally remains below the threshold of conscious awareness. The relationship between breathing rhythm and time perception becomes particularly intriguing when viewed from this perspective. When you breathe at the optimal coherence frequency of approximately 6 breaths per minute, you're not just synchronizing your physiological systems, you might be tuning your consciousness to a temporal frequency that allows access to quantum information processing capabilities. Consider how different your relationship with time feels when you're in a deeply relaxed, coherent breathing state compared to when you're stressed and breathing rapidly. In coherent states, time often feels more spacious, more present-focused, less rushed. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these subjective changes might reflect actual alterations in how your brain processes temporal information. As you continue breathing slowly and rhythmically, notice how your relationship with time might be shifting. The urgency and rush that characterize normal waking consciousness might be giving way to a more spacious, present-centered awareness. This isn't just relaxation, though relaxation is certainly part of it. This might be access to quantum temporal processing that reveals time's more fundamental, non-linear nature. Here we venture into territory that stretches the boundaries of current scientific understanding, but the implications are too fascinating to ignore. If individual consciousness arises from quantum processes in the brain, and if these processes can be influenced by breathing patterns, then what happens when groups of people breathe in synchrony? Some interpretations suggest that quantum entanglement between consciousness-generating systems might not be limited to different regions within a single brain. If quantum coherence can extend across the microscopic distances within neurons, could it potentially extend across the macroscopic distances between different people? This remains highly speculative, but there are intriguing hints that collective breathing practices might produce effects that go beyond what we'd expect from individual physiological changes alone. When groups practice synchronized breathing, participants often report experiences of collective awareness, shared insights, and a sense of connection that transcends normal social boundaries. Research on group meditation and collective breathing practices shows correlations with measurable changes in local environments, though the mechanisms remain unclear and the findings remain controversial. Some studies suggest that when large groups engage in coherent practices, there might be detectable changes in random number generators, electromagnetic field measurements, and even crime statistics in surrounding areas. These correlations don't prove causation, and alternative explanations exist for all observed effects. But if quantum consciousness theories prove correct, and if quantum entanglement can occur between consciousness-generating systems, then collective breathing practices might create shared quantum fields of awareness. This perspective transforms individual breathing practice into something potentially much larger. When you optimize your breathing patterns, when you create coherent states in your own consciousness-generating systems, you might be contributing to a larger field of quantum coherence that extends beyond your individual awareness. As you breathe right now, consider the possibility that your individual practice might be part of a larger pattern of awakening consciousness. This remains unproven, but it suggests that learning to breathe properly might be more than just personal optimization. It might be participation in the collective evolution of human consciousness itself. Your body right now might be the most sophisticated quantum laboratory accessible to human investigation. Unlike the quantum computers that require temperatures near absolute zero and complete isolation from environmental interference, the quantum processes potentially occurring in your brain happen at normal body temperature in the noisy, chaotic environment of living tissue. This suggests that biological quantum systems, if they exist, operate by principles we don't yet fully understand. They would need to maintain quantum coherence despite thermal noise, electromagnetic interference, and constant molecular motion. Some interpretations propose that life itself might have evolved mechanisms for protecting and enhancing quantum coherence in biological systems. Your breathing patterns might be one of these evolved mechanisms. When you breathe optimally, you could be activating ancient biological technologies for maintaining quantum coherence that have been refined over millions of years of evolution. The techniques developed by contemplative traditions might be sophisticated methods for accessing these quantum capabilities. This transforms every breathing session into a kind of quantum experiment. When you practice coherent breathing, when you optimize your respiratory patterns, you're potentially testing quantum consciousness theories through direct experience. Your subjective reports of enhanced awareness, expanded perception, and altered states of consciousness become data points in humanity's investigation of quantum reality. The beauty of this approach is that it requires no special equipment, no advanced degrees, no expensive technology. Your breath is always available as a tool for consciousness exploration. Every inhalation and exhalation becomes an opportunity to investigate the deepest mysteries of awareness and reality. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, recognize that you're participating in one of the most profound scientific investigations of our time. The changes you notice in awareness, the shifts in perception, the sense of expanded consciousness, these aren't just personal experiences, they're contributions to our collective understanding of what consciousness is and how it might operate according to quantum principles. This perspective elevates breathing practice from simple health technique to consciousness research. You become both the scientist and the laboratory, the investigator and the phenomenon being investigated. And the results of your experiments might contribute to discoveries that transform our understanding of reality itself. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, and if breathing patterns can influence quantum processes in the brain, then we might be looking at evolutionary implications that extend far beyond individual health and well-being. The development of complex breathing practices across cultures and throughout history might represent humanity's unconscious recognition of these quantum capabilities. Consider that every major contemplative tradition has developed sophisticated breathing techniques. Yoga traditions speak of pranayama as methods for controlling life force. Taoist practices describe breathing patterns for cultivating spiritual awareness. Buddhist meditation emphasizes breath awareness as a foundation for consciousness development. Christian contemplatives use breath-centered prayer techniques. These independent developments across cultures suggest that something fundamental about breathing and consciousness has been recognized throughout human history. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these traditions might have been developing technologies for optimizing quantum coherence in consciousness, generating systems long before we understood the underlying mechanisms. This raises profound questions about human potential. If proper breathing techniques can enhance quantum information processing in the brain, then most of us might be operating far below our natural cognitive and conscious capacities. Chronic mouth breathing, stress-induced hyperventilation, and shallow respiratory patterns might be limiting access to quantum consciousness capabilities that are naturally ours. The evolutionary perspective suggests that learning to breathe properly might be essential for the next stage of human development. As our understanding of quantum consciousness advances, breathing practices might become recognized as fundamental technologies for consciousness expansion, as important as language or tool use for human development. From this viewpoint, the current epidemic of respiratory dysfunction in modern societies takes on new significance. Poor breathing patterns might not just be causing physical health problems, they might be limiting humanity's access to expanded consciousness capabilities that could be crucial for addressing the complex challenges facing our species. As you continue optimizing your breathing patterns, consider that you might be participating in human evolutionary development. Each conscious breath might be a small step toward accessing the full spectrum of human consciousness potential. This isn't just personal development, it might be species development. We find ourselves at a fascinating intersection where ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science point towards similar conclusions about the fundamental nature of consciousness and reality. Quantum physics reveals a universe that's far stranger and more interconnected than classical science suggested, while contemplative traditions have long described reality as fundamentally unified and consciousness as more than just brain activity. Breathing practices might serve as a bridge between these worldviews, offering practical methods for exploring quantum reality through direct experience. When you engage in optimal breathing patterns, you might be accessing the same quantum phenomena that physicists study in laboratory conditions, but experiencing them as shifts in consciousness rather than measurements on instruments. This convergence suggests that the ancient practices weren't just psychological techniques or health methods. They might have been sophisticated technologies for consciousness research, ways of investigating the quantum nature of reality through subjective experience. The practitioners who developed these methods might have been the first quantum consciousness researchers. Modern science is beginning to validate what contemplatives have long claimed, that consciousness and reality are more mysterious, more interconnected, and more malleable than we previously understood. Breathing practices offer a direct way to investigate these mysteries without requiring advanced equipment or specialized training. The bridge between scientific and contemplative approaches to consciousness research might be found in recognizing that subjective experience and objective measurement are complementary ways of investigating the same underlying quantum reality. Your direct experience of expanded awareness during breathing practices provides data that's just as valuable as laboratory measurements of quantum coherence. This integration suggests that the future of consciousness research might require both sophisticated technology and refined subjective investigation. Scientists and contemplatives might be studying the same phenomena from different perspectives, each contributing essential insights to our understanding of quantum consciousness. As you continue breathing and noticing the subtle changes in awareness that accompany optimal respiratory patterns, recognize that you're participating in this integration. You're both the ancient contemplative, investigating consciousness through direct experience, and the modern researcher contributing to our scientific understanding of quantum reality. We might be standing at the beginning of a revolution in human consciousness, and the catalyst might be as simple as learning to breathe properly. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, then optimizing breathing patterns could unlock cognitive and conscious capabilities that most people never access. This isn't about becoming superhuman or transcending ordinary reality. It's about accessing the full spectrum of human consciousness that might be naturally available but obscured by suboptimal breathing patterns. The revolution would be one of recognition rather than acquisition, remembering capabilities we already possess rather than developing new ones. The implications extend into every area of human experience. Enhanced quantum information processing could improve problem-solving abilities, creative insight, emotional regulation, and interpersonal connection. If quantum entanglement plays a role in consciousness, then optimized breathing might even enhance our ability to connect with and understand other people. Educational systems might need to incorporate breathing instruction as a fundamental skill, as important as reading or mathematics for cognitive development. Healthcare approaches might recognize respiratory optimization as essential for mental health and neurological function. Even technological development might benefit from understanding how quantum consciousness processes could inform artificial intelligence design. The revolution would be democratic in the most fundamental sense. Unlike technological solutions that require resources and expertise, breathing techniques are freely available to everyone. The quantum laboratory of consciousness is built into every human body, waiting to be activated through proper breathing patterns. This accessibility means that consciousness expansion through breathing practices could spread rapidly through populations, creating collective shifts in human awareness and capability. If quantum entanglement does occur between consciousness-generating systems, then individual breathing practice contributes to collective consciousness evolution. As you continue breathing optimally right now, consider that you might be participating in the early stages of this revolution. Each conscious breath might be contributing to a larger transformation in human consciousness, one person and one breath at a time. While we've explored the theoretical implications of quantum consciousness and breathing, the most important laboratory for investigation remains your own direct experience. The subjective changes you notice during optimal breathing practices provide the most immediate and accessible data about these quantum possibilities. Your personal exploration becomes a unique contribution to our collective understanding. No two people have identical brain structures, breathing patterns, or consciousness experiences. Your individual investigation of how breathing affects your awareness adds irreplaceable data to the larger research project of understanding quantum consciousness. This transforms your daily breathing practice into ongoing consciousness research. Each session becomes an opportunity to notice subtle changes in perception, awareness, and cognitive function. The insights you gain through consistent practice contribute to your personal understanding of how quantum processes might influence consciousness. The journey is inherently experimental and exploratory. There's no predetermined outcome, no specific experience you should achieve. The investigation involves careful attention to how different breathing patterns affect your subjective experience of consciousness, awareness, and reality. Over time, this personal research might reveal patterns and insights that contribute to the larger scientific understanding of quantum consciousness. Your subjective reports of enhanced intuition, expanded awareness, or altered perception become valuable data points in humanity's investigation of these phenomena. The beauty of this personal approach is that it requires no external validation or scientific approval. Your direct experience provides immediate feedback about the effectiveness of different breathing techniques for expanding consciousness. You become both researcher and subject in the most intimate and immediate way possible. As you continue this personal quantum journey, remember that every breath is an opportunity for discovery. Each conscious inhalation and exhalation participates in the ongoing investigation of consciousness, reality, and human potential. Your individual exploration contributes to our collective awakening to the quantum nature of consciousness itself. This is a speculative idea, not a proven scientific fact, but it transforms breathing practice from routine maintenance into conscious participation in the deepest mysteries of existence. Every breath becomes a small act of scientific and spiritual exploration, a gentle probe into the quantum foundations of consciousness itself. As our exploration draws toward completion, let's take a moment to appreciate the profound simplicity of what we've discovered together. Something as fundamental as breathing, something you do without thinking thousands of times each day, might be the key to unlocking quantum reality and expanded consciousness. The implications ripple outward in all directions. If quantum processes in the brain can be influenced by breathing patterns, then consciousness itself might be more malleable and accessible than we've ever imagined. The boundaries between ordinary awareness and expanded consciousness might be as permeable as the boundary between inhalation and exhalation. This understanding transforms every breath into an opportunity for consciousness exploration. You don't need special equipment, advanced training, or perfect conditions. You need only the willingness to pay attention to something you're already doing and to optimize it for quantum coherence rather than just gas exchange. The techniques we've explored, the scientific theories we've examined, the practical applications we've discussed, all point toward the same revolutionary possibility: that human consciousness might be designed to access quantum reality, and that breathing serves as the primary interface for this access. Whether or not quantum consciousness theories prove correct, the practical benefits of optimal breathing remain clear and immediate. Enhanced oxygenation, improved coherence between physiological systems, reduced stress, and expanded awareness are measurable outcomes that improve quality of life regardless of their quantum implications. But the quantum possibilities add a dimension of wonder and potential that transforms breathing practice from health technique into consciousness technology. Each breath becomes participation in the fundamental mystery of how consciousness arises from matter, how awareness emerges from physical processes, how the subjective experience of being emerges from objective biological systems. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, allow yourself to appreciate the profound mystery and possibility contained in this simple act. Whether you're optimizing cellular oxygenation or fine-tuning quantum information processing systems, whether you're reducing stress or accessing expanded consciousness, you're participating in one of the most fundamental processes of existence itself. The breath continues, as it always has, as it always will. But now you understand that each cycle might be more than just survival maintenance. It might be consciousness exploration, quantum investigation, and participation in the deepest mysteries of reality itself. Your breathing right now connects you to every breath you've ever taken and every breath you'll ever take. It connects you to the quantum field that might underlie all consciousness. It connects you to the infinite mystery of being aware in a quantum universe. And in this connection, in this continuous cycle of breath and awareness, we find not answers, but better questions, not conclusions, but deeper mysteries. Not the end of exploration, but the beginning of a journey into consciousness that might be as infinite as the breath itself. As we venture deeper into this quantum landscape, there's another layer of the breathing consciousness connection that deserves our attention. Within your bloodstream right now, millions of hemoglobin molecules are performing an intricate dance, one that might have quantum mechanical implications we're only beginning to understand. Each hemoglobin molecule contains 4 iron atoms, and these iron atoms can exist in different quantum states, depending on whether they're carrying oxygen or not. When you breathe in, oxygen molecules bind to these iron centers, creating what biochemists call oxyhemoglobin. When you breathe out, carbon dioxide facilitates the release of oxygen to your tissues, transforming the hemoglobin back to its deoxygenated state. But here's what makes this particularly fascinating from a quantum perspective. The iron atoms in hemoglobin can exhibit what's called spin-state crossover. This is a quantum mechanical phenomenon where the electrons around the iron atom can switch between different energy configurations. Some interpretations suggest that these quantum state changes might be more than just biochemical mechanics. They might be part of a larger quantum information processing system within your body. When you breathe optimally through your nose at a slow rhythmic pace, you create the ideal conditions for this molecular dance to occur efficiently. The steady supply of oxygen, the controlled release of carbon dioxide, the optimized pH levels, all of these factors might be fine-tuning the quantum states of billions of molecules throughout your circulatory system. Take a moment now to feel your pulse, if you can find it gently at your wrist or neck. Each beat represents billions of these quantum state transitions occurring throughout your body. This isn't just blood circulation. This might be quantum information flowing through your system with every heartbeat, potentially influencing the quantum processes in your brain that some theories suggest generate consciousness. The hemoglobin in your blood serves as more than just an oxygen transport system. It might be part of a vast quantum communication network, carrying information about the quantum state of your entire body to every cell, including the neurons where consciousness might emerge from quantum processes in microtubules. This perspective transforms your cardiovascular system from a simple pump and pipe arrangement into something far more sophisticated, a quantum information distribution network that's optimized by proper breathing patterns and potentially essential for maintaining the quantum coherence that consciousness might require. There's a remarkable phenomenon that occurs when all the oscillatory systems in your body begin to synchronize, creating what physicists might recognize as a coherent field state. This synchronization, achieved through specific breathing patterns, might represent more than just physiological harmony. Some interpretations suggest it could create the kind of unified field conditions that quantum consciousness processes might require to emerge from the cellular level into conscious experience. When you breathe at the optimal coherence frequency, approximately 6 breaths per minute, your heart rate variability, blood pressure oscillations, and even your brainwave patterns begin to entrain to this rhythm. It's as if your entire body becomes a single coherent oscillator rather than a collection of competing rhythms. From a quantum field theory perspective, this coherence is significant. Coherent systems can maintain quantum information more effectively than chaotic ones. When your biological systems achieve this synchronized state, you might be creating the optimal conditions for quantum field effects to emerge and persist in living tissue. The subjective experience of this coherence is often described as profound calm, expanded awareness, and a sense of connection to something larger than individual consciousness. While these remain subjective reports, their consistency across different individuals and cultures suggests something significant might be occurring at the quantum level. Research on heart-brain coherence has revealed that this synchronized state produces measurable changes in the electromagnetic fields generated by your body. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, and when it achieves coherence through optimal breathing, this field becomes more organized and potentially more capable of influencing quantum processes throughout your system. As you continue breathing rhythmically, imagine that you're not just coordinating physiological systems, but potentially creating a coherent quantum field that encompasses your entire body. This field, generated by trillions of synchronized cellular oscillations, might serve as the foundation for the unified conscious experience that quantum theories suggest emerges from quantum information processing. This remains speculative, but it offers a framework for understanding how something as simple as breathing rhythm could influence something as complex as consciousness. The coherent field created by synchronized breathing might be the missing link between physiological coherence and conscious awareness. Consider for a moment the staggering amount of information processing that must occur for you to have the unified, conscious experience you're having right now. Your brain is integrating sensory data from millions of receptors, accessing relevant memories from vast storage networks, generating emotional responses, maintaining awareness of your body's condition, and somehow weaving all of this into a single, coherent stream of consciousness. Classical information processing theories struggle to explain how this integration occurs fast enough and comprehensively enough to generate unified conscious experience. The binding problem, as neuroscientists call it, remains one of the deepest mysteries in consciousness research, but quantum information processing offers intriguing possibilities for how this integration might work. If quantum entanglement can occur between the microtubules in different regions of your brain, then information could potentially be shared instantaneously across vast neural networks. The quantum phenomenon of superposition could allow multiple information processing pathways to be explored simultaneously until they collapse into the single, definite experience of conscious awareness. Your breathing patterns might influence this quantum information architecture in ways we're only beginning to investigate. The cellular environment created by optimal breathing could potentially enhance quantum entanglement between different brain regions, improving the integration of information that creates unified conscious experience. When you breathe shallowly and rapidly, you create chemical conditions that might interfere with quantum coherence and entanglement. When you breathe slowly and deeply through your nose, you might be optimizing the conditions that allow quantum information processing to function at its highest level. This perspective suggests that the quality of your conscious experience, the depth of your awareness, the clarity of your thinking might all be influenced by how well your breathing patterns support quantum information processing in your brain. Each breath becomes an opportunity to enhance or diminish the quantum coherence that consciousness might depend upon. Take a moment to notice the unified nature of your current experience as you listen to these words. You're simultaneously aware of the concepts being presented, your physical sensations, your emotional responses, and your environment. If quantum theories prove correct, this integration might depend on quantum processes that your breathing is influencing right now. Time as we experience it in consciousness might be fundamentally different from the mechanical time measured by clocks. Quantum mechanics reveals that time can behave in ways that contradict our everyday experience, and if consciousness arises from quantum processes, then our subjective experience of time might reflect these quantum temporal properties. During intensive breathing practices, people often report profound alterations in time perception. Minutes can feel like hours, or hours can pass in what seems like moments. The linear progression of past, present, and future can dissolve into a more fluid, non-linear experience of temporal awareness. Some interpretations suggest these altered time states might reflect access to the quantum temporal processing that normally occurs below the threshold of conscious awareness. If consciousness-generating systems in the brain process information in quantum superposition states, then they might be accessing multiple temporal possibilities simultaneously. The breathing techniques that produce these temporal alterations often involve specific patterns of inhalation, retention, and exhalation that create unique chemical conditions in the brain. These conditions might optimize the quantum coherence necessary for accessing quantum temporal processing capabilities that are naturally present but usually inaccessible. When you breathe at the coherence frequency, You might be synchronizing your consciousness to a temporal rhythm that allows access to quantum time processing. The spacious, present-centered awareness that often accompanies coherent breathing might reflect a shift from linear time processing to quantum temporal awareness. As you continue breathing slowly and rhythmically, notice how your relationship with time might be shifting. The urgency and linear progression that characterize normal waking consciousness might be giving way to a more fluid, present-centered temporal experience. This shift in time perception might be one of the most accessible indicators that quantum processes in your brain are being influenced by your breathing patterns. This remains highly speculative, but it suggests that breathing practices might offer a practical method for investigating quantum temporal effects in consciousness. Your subjective experience of altered time during breathing practice becomes data about how quantum processes might function in biological systems. Here we enter territory that stretches the boundaries of current scientific understanding, but the implications are too profound to ignore. If quantum entanglement can occur between consciousness-generating systems within individual brains, some interpretations suggest it might also be possible between the consciousness systems of different individuals. This possibility would transform collective breathing practices from simple group activities into something far more significant: potential methods for creating shared quantum consciousness fields. When groups of people breathe in synchrony, achieving coherent states simultaneously, they might be creating conditions where quantum entanglement between their consciousness-generating systems becomes possible. The research on this remains preliminary and controversial, but there are intriguing correlations. Studies of group meditation and collective breathing practices have found statistical correlations with changes in random number generators, electromagnetic field measurements, and even social indicators in surrounding communities. These correlations don't prove causation, and alternative explanations exist, but they suggest something worthy of investigation might be occurring. If quantum entanglement between consciousness systems proves possible, then individual breathing practice takes on collective significance when you optimize your breathing patterns, when you create coherent states in your consciousness-generating systems. You might be contributing to a larger field of quantum coherence that extends beyond individual awareness. This perspective suggests that consciousness might not be entirely individual. If quantum entanglement can create shared information, processing between different people's consciousness systems, then the boundaries between self and other might be more permeable than we typically assume. As you breathe consciously right now, consider the possibility that your individual practice might be part of a larger pattern of collective consciousness evolution. This remains unproven, but it transforms breathing practice from personal optimization into potential participation in the collective development of human consciousness. The implications extend into every area of human interaction. If consciousness systems can achieve quantum entanglement, then empathy, intuition, and social connection might have quantum mechanical foundations that we're only beginning to investigate. From an evolutionary perspective, the development of complex breathing practices across cultures throughout history might represent humanity's unconscious recognition of quantum consciousness capabilities. Every major contemplative tradition has independently developed sophisticated breathing techniques, suggesting something fundamental about the relationship between breath and consciousness has been recognized across time and culture. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these traditional practices might represent evolved technologies for optimizing quantum information processing in the brain. The techniques passed down through generations might be sophisticated methods for accessing quantum reality that were developed through direct experiential investigation long before we understood the underlying mechanisms. This raises profound questions about human evolutionary potential. If proper breathing techniques can enhance quantum coherence in consciousness-generating systems, then most modern humans might be operating far below their natural cognitive and conscious capacities. The epidemic of respiratory dysfunction in industrial societies might be limiting access to quantum consciousness capabilities that are part of our evolutionary heritage. The convergence of ancient wisdom and modern quantum theory suggests we might be approaching a new stage in human development. As our scientific understanding of quantum consciousness advances, breathing practices might become recognized as fundamental technologies for consciousness expansion, as important as language or tool use for human evolutionary development. This evolutionary perspective transforms individual breathing practice into species development. Each person who learns to breathe optimally, who accesses enhanced states of consciousness through proper respiratory techniques, might be participating in the next phase of human evolution. The democratic nature of breathing practice means this evolutionary development is accessible to everyone. Unlike technological solutions that require resources and expertise, the quantum laboratory of consciousness is built into every human body, waiting to be activated through proper breathing patterns. As you continue optimizing your breathing, consider that you might be participating in human evolutionary development. Each conscious breath might be a small contribution to the collective awakening of human consciousness to its quantum potential. We find ourselves at a remarkable convergence where ancient contemplative wisdom and cutting-edge quantum science point towards similar conclusions about the fundamental nature of consciousness and reality. This convergence isn't accidental. It might represent the maturation of human understanding, where subjective investigation and objective measurement reveal complementary aspects of the same underlying quantum reality. Breathing practices serve as a bridge between these approaches, offering practical methods for investigating quantum consciousness through direct experience while remaining amenable to scientific measurement and analysis. When you engage in optimal breathing patterns, you're simultaneously following ancient contemplative instructions and potentially optimizing conditions for quantum information processing in your brain. This integration suggests that future consciousness research might require both sophisticated technology and refined subjective investigation. Scientists and contemplatives might be studying the same phenomena from different perspectives, each contributing essential insights to our understanding of quantum consciousness. The ancient practitioners who developed complex breathing techniques might have been the first quantum consciousness researchers, investigating through direct experience what modern science is beginning to measure with sophisticated instruments. Their subjective reports of expanded awareness, altered perception, and transcendent states might be descriptions of quantum consciousness, effects that we're now learning to understand scientifically. Modern research is beginning to validate what contemplatives have long claimed, that consciousness is more mysterious, more malleable, and more fundamental than classical science suggested. Breathing practices offer a direct method for investigating these mysteries that requires no advanced equipment or specialized training. The bridge between scientific and contemplative approaches might be found in recognizing that subjective experience and objective measurement are complementary ways of investigating the same underlying reality. Your direct experience of expanded consciousness during breathing practice provides data that's as valuable as laboratory measurements of quantum coherence. As you continue breathing consciously, recognize that you're participating in this ancient and modern investigation simultaneously. You're both the contemplative exploring consciousness through direct experience and the researcher contributing to our scientific understanding of quantum reality. As our exploration reaches its natural completion, let's pause to appreciate the profound transformation that might be available through something as simple as conscious breathing. We've journeyed through quantum theories and ancient wisdom, through scientific speculation and practical application, always returning to the fundamental recognition that your breath might be the key to accessing quantum reality and expanded consciousness. The implications ripple outward in all directions, touching every aspect of human experience. If quantum processes in the brain can be influenced by breathing patterns, then consciousness itself becomes more accessible, more malleable, more available to conscious development than we've ever imagined. This understanding transforms every breath into an opportunity for consciousness exploration and quantum investigation. You need no special equipment, no advanced degrees, no perfect conditions. You need only the willingness to breathe consciously and to pay attention to the subtle changes in awareness that accompany optimal respiratory patterns. Whether or not quantum consciousness theories prove correct, the practical benefits of conscious breathing remain immediate and measurable. Enhanced oxygenation, improved physiological coherence, reduced stress, and expanded awareness are outcomes that improve life quality, regardless of their quantum implications. But the quantum possibilities add a dimension of wonder and potential that transforms breathing from basic biology into consciousness technology. Each breath becomes participation in the fundamental mystery of how awareness emerges from matter, how consciousness arises from quantum processes, how subjective experience develops from objective physical systems. The techniques we've explored, the theories we've examined, the practical applications we've discussed, all point toward the same revolutionary possibility, that human consciousness might be designed to access quantum reality, and that breathing serves as the primary interface for this access. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, allow yourself to appreciate the profound mystery contained in this simple act. Whether you're optimizing cellular function or fine-tuning quantum information processing, whether you're reducing stress or accessing expanded consciousness, you're participating in one of the most fundamental processes of existence itself. Your breathing connects you to every breath you've ever taken and every breath you'll take. It connects you to the quantum field that might underlie all consciousness. It connects you to the infinite mystery of being aware in a quantum universe. In this connection, we find not final answers but deeper questions, not conclusions but expanded mysteries, not the end of exploration but the beginning of a journey into consciousness that might be as infinite as breath itself. The laboratory of consciousness remains open, always accessible, requiring nothing more than your attention and your willingness to breathe consciously. Every inhalation and exhalation offers an opportunity to investigate the quantum foundations of awareness, to explore the deepest mysteries of consciousness, to participate in the ongoing evolution of human understanding. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, something remarkable is unfolding within the microscopic universe of your cells. Deep within your mitochondria, the powerhouses of cellular energy, a complex dance of electrons is occurring that might connect to the very quantum processes we've been exploring. Each time you inhale oxygen through your nose, you're feeding these cellular engines with the raw material they need for energy production. But this isn't just simple chemistry. The final step of cellular respiration, where oxygen accepts electrons to produce water, involves quantum mechanical electron tunneling. Electrons literally tunnel through energy barriers that classical physics says they shouldn't be able to cross. This quantum tunneling in your mitochondria happens billions of times per second throughout your body. Some interpretations suggest that the efficiency of this process might be influenced by the cellular environment created by your breathing patterns. When you breathe optimally, you might be creating conditions that enhance quantum coherence in these cellular energy systems. The fascinating thing is that mitochondria retain their own DNA, separate from the DNA in your cell nucleus. They're thought to be ancient bacteria that formed a symbiotic relationship with early cells billions of years ago. These quantum-powered energy generators within your cells might represent one of evolution's earliest experiments with biological quantum mechanics. As you breathe right now, take a moment to appreciate that you're not just oxygenating your blood. You might be optimizing quantum processes in trillions of cellular power plants throughout your body. This cellular symphony of quantum energy production could be contributing to the overall quantum coherence that some theories suggest might be necessary for consciousness to emerge. The connection between cellular energy production and consciousness becomes particularly intriguing when we consider that the brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy, despite being only 2% of your body weight. If consciousness does arise from quantum processes, it would require enormous amounts of precisely controlled energy to maintain quantum coherence in the warm, noisy environment of living tissue. This is speculative territory, but it suggests that optimal breathing might be essential not just for general health, but for providing the quantum-optimized cellular energy that consciousness itself might require. Each breath becomes fuel for the quantum engines that might generate awareness itself. There's a beautiful phenomenon in physics called resonance, where systems naturally synchronize their oscillations when they're coupled together. You've probably seen this when pendulum clocks in the same room gradually sync their swinging, or when tuning forks of the same frequency cause each other to vibrate. But what's happening in your body during optimal breathing might be a far more sophisticated version of this same principle. When you breathe at the coherence frequency of approximately 6 breaths per minute, you're not just synchronizing your heart and lungs. Research suggests you might be creating a resonance cascade that extends throughout your entire nervous system. Your brain waves begin to entrain to this rhythm. Your blood pressure oscillations synchronize. Even the firing patterns of neurons throughout your body might begin to coordinate with this fundamental frequency. From a quantum perspective, this system-wide resonance could be creating the kind of ordered, coherent environment that quantum processes require to function in biological systems. Imagine billions of cellular oscillators throughout your body gradually synchronizing, like a vast orchestra finding its rhythm. This coherent biological field might provide the foundation for quantum information processing to emerge from the molecular level into conscious experience. The subjective experience of this resonance is often described as profound peace, expanded awareness, and a sense of connection that extends beyond the boundaries of individual identity. While these remain personal experiences, their consistency across different people and cultures suggests something significant might be occurring at the quantum level. Take a moment now to notice any sense of synchronization or harmony in your body as you continue breathing slowly and rhythmically. You might be experiencing the early stages of this resonance cascade, where different physiological systems begin to function as a unified, coherent whole rather than separate, competing processes. This coherence isn't just pleasant, it might be essential. Some interpretations suggest that the quantum processes potentially involved in consciousness require precisely this kind of system-wide coordination to maintain the delicate coherence necessary for quantum information processing in warm biological systems. As you breathe, imagine that you're not just coordinating heart and lungs, but potentially orchestrating a symphony of quantum coherence that extends throughout your entire being. This remains unproven, but it transforms conscious breathing from simple relaxation into active participation in the quantum foundations of awareness itself. Your body is constantly generating electromagnetic fields, and these fields might play a crucial role in how quantum processes could influence consciousness. Your heart alone produces an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your physical body, and this field becomes more organized and coherent when you achieve the synchronized breathing states we've been exploring. But it's not just your heart. Every neural firing, every muscle contraction, every cellular process involving moving charges contributes to the complex electromagnetic environment that surrounds and interpenetrates your body. Some interpretations suggest this bioelectromagnetic field might serve as a medium through which quantum information could propagate between different regions of your nervous system. When you breathe optimally and achieve physiological coherence, something remarkable happens to these electromagnetic fields. Instead of the chaotic, conflicting patterns typical of stressed or incoherent states, your bioelectromagnetic signature becomes more organized, more harmonious, potentially more conducive to maintaining quantum coherence across larger biological systems. This electromagnetic coherence might explain how quantum effects in individual microtubules could coordinate across vast networks of neurons to generate unified conscious experience. If quantum information can propagate through coherent electromagnetic fields, then the field effects created by optimal breathing might be essential for the kind of brain-wide quantum coordination that consciousness might require. Research using sensitive magnetometers has detected changes in the electromagnetic fields around people during deep meditation and advanced breathing practices. While the mechanisms remain unclear, these measurements suggest that contemplative practices might indeed be creating measurable changes in the electromagnetic environment around the body. As you continue breathing consciously, imagine that you're not just affecting internal physiology, but potentially cultivating an electromagnetic garden that extends beyond the boundaries of your physical form. This field, invisible but measurable, might serve as the medium through which quantum consciousness effects could manifest and extend into the space around you. This perspective suggests that conscious breathing might influence not just your internal states, but the electromagnetic environment you share with others. If quantum effects can propagate through coherent electromagnetic fields, then your breathing practice might contribute to creating conditions where collective quantum consciousness effects could theoretically occur. Sound itself might play a more significant role in quantum consciousness than we've previously considered. When you breathe, you're not just moving air, you're creating pressure waves that propagate through every fluid and tissue in your body. These acoustic waves, traveling at different speeds through different biological media, might serve as carriers of quantum information throughout your system. The ancient traditions have long recognized sound as fundamental to consciousness development. Sanskrit mantras, Tibetan singing bowls, Aboriginal didgeridoos all create specific acoustic environments that practitioners report enhance meditative states and expand awareness. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these sound-based practices might be optimizing the acoustic environment for quantum information processing. Your breathing creates its own internal soundscape, a complex pattern of pressure waves that flow through your respiratory system, your cardiovascular system, and the cerebrospinal fluid that bathes your brain and spinal cord. When you breathe slowly and deeply through your nose, you create them when you breathe rapidly through your mouth. Some interpretations suggest that the pressure waves created by optimal breathing might help maintain quantum coherence by providing a kind of acoustic scaffolding for quantum information processing. Just as sound waves can create standing wave patterns in physical systems, the acoustic environment created by conscious breathing might create stable patterns that support quantum coherence in biological systems. The connection between sound and quantum effects isn't merely speculative. Researchers have demonstrated that acoustic waves can influence quantum systems, and some studies suggest that biological systems might use sound-based mechanisms to maintain quantum coherence even in warm, noisy environments. As you breathe right now, notice the subtle sounds and sensations associated with each inhalation and exhalation. You're not just exchanging gases, you might be generating an internal acoustic environment that supports the quantum processes potentially underlying consciousness itself. This acoustic perspective adds another layer to our understanding of why specific breathing techniques have been developed across cultures. The precise rhythms, the controlled retention phases, the emphasis on nasal breathing, all of these elements might be optimizing the acoustic environment for quantum consciousness effects that traditional practitioners recognized through direct experience. Water makes up approximately 70% of your body, but this isn't ordinary water. The water in biological systems exhibits properties that are quite different from the water in your drinking glass, and these properties might be crucial for understanding how quantum processes could function in living systems. Biological water often exists in what scientists call a liquid crystalline state, where water molecules organize into structured patterns around proteins, cell membranes, and other biological interfaces. This structured water might serve as more than just a biological medium. Some interpretations suggest it could provide the stable, organized environment that quantum coherence requires to persist in warm biological systems. Your breathing patterns directly influence the hydration and organization of water throughout your body. When you breathe optimally, you maintain proper pH balance, optimal ion concentrations, and the cellular conditions that support healthy water structure. When you mouth breathe and hyperventilate, you create chemical changes that could potentially disrupt these delicate water structures. The microtubules we've discussed as potential quantum processing units are surrounded by layers of this structured water. Some theories propose that quantum information might propagate through these organized water networks, allowing quantum effects to coordinate across larger biological systems than would otherwise be possible. This isn't science fiction. Structured water in biological systems is well documented, though its potential role in quantum information processing remains speculative. But if quantum consciousness theories prove correct, then the quality of water structure in your body might be as important as the quality of your neural hardware for generating conscious experience. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, imagine that you're not just oxygenating your blood, but potentially optimizing the liquid crystalline matrix that might serve as the medium for quantum information processing throughout your body. Each breath might be contributing to the organization of water structures that could be essential for consciousness itself. This perspective adds another dimension to the importance of proper hydration and breathing patterns for cognitive function and mental clarity. If consciousness does depend on quantum processes propagating through structured water networks, then maintaining optimal hydration and breathing patterns becomes essential for accessing the full spectrum of human awareness. As we near the completion of our exploration, it's worth reflecting on the remarkable convergence between ancient contemplative insights and modern quantum consciousness research. Thousands of years before we understood quantum mechanics, contemplative traditions developed sophisticated practices based on the recognition that consciousness and breathing are intimately connected. The Sanskrit word pranayama literally means extension of life force, suggesting that ancient practitioners recognized breath as more than just air exchange. The Taoist concept of qi describes a fundamental energy that flows through breathing and connects individual consciousness to universal patterns. These traditions developed complex breathing techniques based on direct experiential investigation of how breath affects consciousness. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these ancient practices might represent sophisticated technologies for optimizing quantum coherence in consciousness-generating systems. The specific rhythms, retention patterns, and nostril breathing techniques developed through centuries of contemplative research might be precisely the methods needed to create optimal conditions for quantum information processing in the brain. This convergence suggests that human beings might have an intuitive capacity to recognize and work with quantum consciousness effects, even without understanding the underlying mechanisms. The consistency of breathing practices across cultures and throughout history points to something fundamental about the relationship between breath and consciousness that transcends cultural differences. Modern research is beginning to validate what contemplatives have long claimed: that consciousness is more malleable, more accessible to conscious development, and more fundamental to reality than classical science suggested. Breathing practices offer a direct method for investigating these quantum possibilities that requires no advanced equipment or specialized training. The integration of ancient wisdom and modern science might represent the maturation of human understanding, where subjective investigation and objective measurement reveal complementary aspects of the same underlying quantum reality. Your personal exploration of conscious breathing participates in this ancient and modern investigation simultaneously. As you continue breathing consciously, recognize that you're following a path of investigation that extends back through countless generations of contemplatives, while also participating in the cutting edge of consciousness research. Each breath connects you to this vast lineage of consciousness exploration. Looking forward, we might be standing at the threshold of a new era in consciousness research, where the integration of quantum physics, neuroscience, and contemplative practice could revolutionize our understanding of human potential. The breathing techniques we've explored might prove to be among our most valuable tools for investigating the quantum foundations of consciousness. Future research might develop increasingly sophisticated methods for measuring quantum coherence in biological systems during different breathing practices. We might be able to correlate specific breathing patterns with measurable quantum effects in consciousness-generating systems, providing the experimental evidence needed to move quantum consciousness theories from speculation to established science. The development of quantum sensors sensitive enough to detect coherence in warm biological systems could allow real-time monitoring of how breathing patterns influence quantum processes in the brain. This could lead to the development of biofeedback systems that help optimize breathing patterns for maximum quantum coherence and enhanced consciousness. Even more intriguing is the possibility that understanding quantum consciousness could inform the development of technologies that interface directly with these quantum processes. While this remains far in the future, the integration of quantum consciousness research with advances in quantum computing could potentially lead to brain-computer interfaces that operate at the quantum level. But perhaps most importantly, this research could validate what contemplatives have long claimed, that human consciousness has capacities that extend far beyond what we currently access in normal waking states. If quantum processes do underlie consciousness, and if breathing practices can optimize these processes, then we might all have access to enhanced cognitive abilities, expanded awareness, and deeper insights that remain dormant due to suboptimal breathing patterns. The democratization of consciousness research through breathing practices means that everyone becomes a potential contributor to our understanding of quantum consciousness. Your subjective experiences during breathing practice provide valuable data about how quantum processes might function in biological systems. As you continue this exploration, remember that you're not just working on personal development, but potentially participating in the next phase of human consciousness evolution. Each conscious breath might be contributing to discoveries that could transform our understanding of what it means to be conscious in a quantum universe. As our journey through the quantum landscape of consciousness and breath draws toward its natural completion, we find ourselves not at an ending, but at the beginning of an infinite spiral of discovery. Every question we've explored opens into deeper questions. Every insight reveals new mysteries. Every breath offers another opportunity to investigate the profound connections between consciousness and quantum reality. What we've discovered together suggests that the simple act of breathing consciously might be one of the most powerful tools available for consciousness research and development. Whether we're optimizing cellular energy production, enhancing electromagnetic coherence, structuring biological water networks, or creating acoustic environments that support quantum information processing, conscious breathing appears to influence every level of biological organization. The convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science points toward possibilities that are both humbling and inspiring. We might be creatures designed to access quantum reality, but limited by lifestyle factors that interfere with our natural quantum consciousness capabilities. Learning to breathe properly might be essential for reclaiming these capacities. This perspective transforms every breath into an opportunity for consciousness exploration, every breathing session into a quantum experiment, every conscious inhalation and exhalation into participation in the deepest mysteries of existence. You don't need special equipment or advanced training. You need only the willingness to breathe consciously and pay attention to the subtle changes in awareness that accompany optimal respiratory patterns. The practical benefits of conscious breathing remain immediate and measurable, regardless of whether quantum consciousness theories prove correct. Enhanced oxygenation, improved physiological coherence, reduced stress, and expanded awareness are outcomes that improve life quality while also potentially optimizing conditions for quantum consciousness effects. But the quantum possibilities add dimensions of wonder and potential that transform breathing practice from simple health technique into consciousness technology. Each breath becomes participation in the fundamental mystery of how awareness emerges from matter, how consciousness arises from quantum processes, how subjective experience develops from objective physical systems. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, allow yourself to appreciate the profound mystery and infinite potential contained in this simple act. Whether you're improving physical health or optimizing quantum consciousness processes, whether you're reducing stress or accessing expanded awareness, you're participating in one of the most fundamental processes of existence itself. Your breath connects you to every breath you've ever taken and every breath you'll take. It connects you to the quantum field that might underlie all consciousness. It connects you to the infinite mystery of being aware in a quantum universe, where consciousness and reality dance together in ways we're only beginning to understand. In this connection, we find not final answers, but better questions, not conclusions, but expanded mysteries, not the end of exploration, but the beginning of a journey into consciousness that spirals infinitely inward and outward, revealing new depths with every turn. The laboratory of consciousness remains always open, always accessible, requiring nothing more than your breath and your willingness to investigate the quantum foundations of awareness. Every inhalation and exhalation offers an opportunity to explore the deepest mysteries of consciousness, to participate in the ongoing evolution of human understanding, to contribute to discoveries that might transform our species' relationship with reality itself. There's something deeply moving about watching two people breathe together in perfect synchrony. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself, lying beside someone you care about, your breathing naturally falling into rhythm with theirs without any conscious effort. What seems like a simple, intimate moment might actually be a window into something far more profound about the nature of consciousness and connection. Some interpretations suggest that when two people achieve synchronized breathing patterns, they might be creating conditions where their individual consciousness-generating systems could theoretically interact in ways that classical neuroscience struggles to explain. This remains highly speculative, but the subjective reports from people who practice partner breathing exercises are remarkably consistent across cultures and contexts. Practitioners often describe experiences of expanded empathy, shared insights, and a sense of connection that seems to transcend normal social boundaries. While these remain personal experiences without scientific verification, they align intriguingly with what we might expect if consciousness systems could achieve some form of quantum correlation through synchronized physiological states. Research on mirror neurons has shown that our brains are naturally wired to synchronize with others. When you watch someone breathe, specific neurons in your brain fire as if you were breathing with them. This neural mirroring might be more than just social bonding. It might be creating the conditions where deeper forms of consciousness connection could theoretically emerge. The electromagnetic fields generated by your heart and brain extend several feet beyond your physical body. When two people sit close together, these fields overlap and interact in measurable ways. During synchronized breathing, these field interactions become more organized and coherent, creating what some interpretations suggest might be a shared electromagnetic environment that could support quantum correlation between consciousness systems. Take a moment to consider your own experiences of connection with others. Have you ever noticed how being around certain people affect your breathing, your heart rate, your sense of calm or agitation? This physiological entrainment might be more significant than we typically assume. If consciousness does involve quantum processes, then the synchronization of breathing patterns might be optimizing conditions for consciousness systems to interact in ways that go beyond normal social communication. This perspective suggests that conscious breathing practice might enhance not just individual awareness, but also our capacity for genuine connections with others. When you optimize your breathing patterns, you might be creating conditions that make deeper forms of empathy and understanding possible. Your brain is changing right now as you listen to these words, and the way you're breathing might be influencing how those changes occur. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new neural connections, appears to be enhanced by the kinds of coherent physiological states that optimal breathing creates. When you breathe in the coherent rhythm we've explored, you're not just affecting your current state of consciousness. Some interpretations suggest you might be creating optimal conditions for the brain to rewire itself in ways that could enhance its capacity for quantum information processing. This remains speculative, but the research on breathing practices and brain plasticity is compelling. Studies of people who engage in regular breathing practices show measurable changes in brain structure over time. Regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and sensory processing become more developed. The white matter connections between different brain regions become more robust and efficient. These structural changes might represent the brain optimizing itself for the kinds of coherent states that breathing practices promote. If quantum consciousness theories prove correct, these neuroplastic changes might be more than just general brain health improvements. They might represent the brain literally rewiring itself to better support quantum information processing. The enhanced connectivity between brain regions could facilitate the kind of system-wide quantum coherence that consciousness might require. The implications are profound. This suggests that regular breathing practice might not just improve your current state of consciousness, but actually enhance your brain's capacity for expanded awareness over time. Each session of conscious breathing might be contributing to structural changes that make deeper states of consciousness more accessible in the future. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, imagine that you're not just affecting your current experience, but potentially guiding the evolution of your own brain toward greater capacity for quantum consciousness. This remains unproven, but it transforms breathing practice from temporary state change into long-term consciousness development. The neuroplasticity research also suggests that these changes are available throughout life. Your brain retains the capacity to rewire itself in response to consistent practice, regardless of age. This means that the quantum consciousness capabilities we've been exploring might be developable at any stage of life through dedicated breathing practice. There's a beautiful phenomenon that occurs when all the oscillatory systems in your body achieve what physicists call phase locking, where multiple rhythmic processes synchronize their frequencies. This isn't just physiological harmony. Some interpretations suggest that it might create the kind of coherent biological field that quantum processes require to emerge from the cellular level into conscious experience. During optimal breathing states, your heart rate variability, blood pressure oscillations, brainwave patterns, and even the firing rhythms of neurons throughout your nervous system begin to entrain to the fundamental breathing rhythm. It's as if your entire body becomes a single, unified oscillator rather than a collection of competing biological processes. This harmonic convergence creates what researchers measure as increased coherence between different physiological systems. But coherence in physics has a very specific meaning. It refers to the kind of ordered, stable conditions that allow quantum effects to persist and propagate through larger systems. When your body achieves this biological coherence, you might be creating optimal conditions for quantum information processing to occur at a system-wide level. The subjective experience of this harmonic state is often described as profound peace, expanded awareness, and a sense of unity that extends beyond individual identity. While these remain personal experiences, their consistency suggests something significant might be occurring at the quantum level when biological systems achieve this degree of coordination. Take a moment now to notice any sense of harmony or synchronization in your body as you continue breathing rhythmically. You might be experiencing the early stages of this harmonic convergence, where your various physiological systems begin to function as a unified, coherent whole. This biological harmony might be more than just pleasant. Some interpretations suggest it could be essential for the kind of system-wide quantum coherence that consciousness might require. Individual quantum processes in isolated cells might not be sufficient to generate conscious experience. But when those processes are coordinated across vast networks through biological coherence, they might reach the threshold necessary for consciousness to emerge. As you breathe consciously, imagine that you're not just coordinating different body systems, but potentially orchestrating the harmonic conditions that allow quantum consciousness to manifest. This remains speculative, but it transforms conscious breathing from simple relaxation into active participation in the fundamental processes that might generate awareness itself. Time itself might be more malleable than we typically assume, and your breathing patterns might influence how you experience temporal flow in ways that connect to quantum mechanical properties of consciousness. During certain breathing practices, people often report profound alterations in time perception that suggest something fundamental about the nature of temporal experience might be shifting. In quantum mechanics, time doesn't always behave according to our everyday expectations. Quantum systems can exist in superposition states where multiple temporal possibilities coexist until measurement causes them to collapse into a definite sequence. If consciousness arises from quantum processes, then our subjective experience of time might reflect these quantum temporal properties more than the mechanical progression measured by clocks. When you breathe at the coherence frequency, you're synchronizing your consciousness to a specific temporal rhythm. Some interpretations suggest this synchronization might allow access to quantum temporal processing that normally occurs below the threshold of conscious awareness. The spacious, present-centered awareness that often accompanies coherent breathing might represent a shift from linear time processing to quantum temporal awareness. The breathing techniques that produce the most profound temporal alterations often involve specific patterns of inhalation, retention, and exhalation that create unique neurochemical conditions. These conditions might optimize the quantum coherence necessary for accessing quantum temporal processing capabilities that are naturally present but usually inaccessible to conscious experience. As you continue breathing slowly and rhythmically, notice how your relationship with time might be shifting. The urgency and linear progression that characterize normal waking consciousness might be giving way to a more fluid, present-centered temporal experience. This shift might be one of the most accessible indicators that quantum processes in your consciousness are being influenced by your breathing patterns. Take a moment to appreciate the temporal dimension of this very experience. Each breath cycle creates its own rhythm, its own temporal signature. When you breathe consciously, you're not just existing in time, you might be actively participating in the creation of your temporal experience through quantum processes that respond to the rhythmic patterns you create. This perspective suggests that breathing practices might offer a practical method for investigating quantum temporal effects in consciousness. Your subjective experience of altered time during breathing practice becomes valuable data about how quantum processes might function in biological systems and how consciousness might participate in the fundamental nature of time itself. As we approach the natural completion of this exploration, let's pause to appreciate the profound recognition that has emerged from our journey together. You carry within yourself the most sophisticated consciousness laboratory that has ever existed, one that requires no external equipment, no advanced degrees, no perfect conditions. This laboratory is always available, always accessible, waiting to be activated through nothing more than conscious attention to your breath. Every technique we've explored, every theory we've examined, every possibility we've considered, all point toward the same remarkable conclusion: that consciousness itself might be far more accessible to conscious development than we've ever imagined. The quantum processes potentially underlying awareness might be directly influenced by something as simple and fundamental as the way you breathe. This understanding transforms every breath into an opportunity for consciousness research and quantum investigation. Whether you're optimizing cellular energy production, enhancing electromagnetic coherence, creating acoustic environments that support quantum information processing, or synchronizing biological systems into coherent harmony, conscious breathing appears to influence every level of organization that might contribute to conscious experience. The convergence of ancient contemplative wisdom and modern quantum science reveals possibilities that are both humbling and inspiring. We might be beings naturally designed to access quantum reality, but limited by lifestyle factors that interfere with these capabilities. Learning to breathe optimally might be essential for reclaiming consciousness capacities that are rightfully ours but have been obscured by modern patterns of living. Your personal exploration of conscious breathing participates simultaneously in the most ancient and the most modern approaches to consciousness research. You're following techniques developed through millennia of contemplative investigation, while also contributing to cutting-edge scientific understanding of quantum consciousness. Each breath connects you to this vast lineage of consciousness exploration. The practical benefits of conscious breathing remain immediate and measurable, regardless of whether quantum consciousness theories prove correct. Enhanced oxygenation, improved physiological coherence, reduced stress, and expanded awareness are outcomes that improve life quality while potentially optimizing conditions for quantum consciousness effects. But the quantum possibilities add dimensions of wonder and potential that transform breathing practice from simple health technique into consciousness technology. Each breath becomes participation in the fundamental mystery of how awareness emerges from matter, how consciousness might arise from quantum processes, how subjective experience could develop from objective physical systems. As you continue breathing slowly and deeply, allow yourself to appreciate the profound mystery and infinite potential contained in this simple act. Whether you're improving basic physiology or optimizing quantum information processing systems, whether you're reducing stress or accessing expanded states of awareness, you're participating in one of the most fundamental processes of existence itself. Your breath connects you to every breath you've ever taken and every breath you'll take. It connects you to the quantum field that might underlie all consciousness. It connects you to the infinite mystery of being aware in a quantum universe where consciousness and reality dance together in ways we're only beginning to understand. In this connection, we find not final answers, but deeper questions, not conclusions, but expanded mysteries, not the end of exploration, but the recognition that consciousness research through breathing practice offers an infinite spiral of discovery that deepens with every conscious breath. The laboratory of consciousness remains always open, always accessible, requiring nothing more than your willingness to breathe consciously and pay attention to the subtle changes in awareness that accompany optimal respiratory patterns. Every inhalation and exhalation offers an opportunity to explore the deepest mysteries of consciousness, to participate in the ongoing evolution of human understanding, to contribute to discoveries that might transform our species' relationship with reality itself. This is speculative territory, of course, not proven scientific fact, but it represents one of the most fascinating convergences of contemplative practice and quantum science that we have available for investigation. Your direct experience becomes both the method and the data in this exploration of consciousness and quantum reality. And so we find ourselves at the natural completion of this exploration, having journeyed through the intricate landscape where breath meets quantum possibility. What began as a simple recognition that you might be breathing incorrectly has opened into something far more profound, a recognition that consciousness itself might be more accessible and malleable than we've ever dared imagine. The convergence we've discovered between ancient contemplative wisdom and cutting-edge quantum science suggests that your breath might indeed be the most direct interface you have with the deepest layers of reality. Whether we're discussing the quantum processes potentially occurring in microtubules, the electromagnetic coherence of synchronized biological systems, or the temporal alterations that accompany optimal breathing states, all paths seem to lead back to the same quiet revelation, that consciousness and breath are intimately connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. This isn't about becoming superhuman or transcending ordinary reality. It's about recognizing and reclaiming capacities that might be naturally yours but have been inadvertently limited by patterns of breathing that evolved not for consciousness expansion, but for survival in a world very different from the one we inhabit today. Each conscious breath you take from this moment forward becomes an opportunity to investigate these possibilities through the most immediate and accessible laboratory available to human consciousness research, your own direct experience. The practical benefits remain immediate and measurable. Enhanced oxygenation, improved physiological coherence, reduced stress, expanded awareness. These outcomes improve life quality regardless of their potential quantum implications. But the quantum possibilities add dimensions of wonder that transform something as fundamental as breathing from basic biology into consciousness technology, where each inhalation and exhalation becomes participation in the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Your breath connects you to every breath you've ever taken and every breath you'll take. It connects you to the quantum field that might underlie all consciousness. It connects you to the infinite mystery of being aware in a universe where consciousness and reality dance together in ways that invite not final answers, but deeper questions. Not conclusions, but expanded mysteries. Not the end of exploration, but the recognition that the laboratory of consciousness is always open, always accessible, requiring nothing more than your willingness to breathe consciously and pay attention to the subtle changes in awareness that accompany this most fundamental act of being alive. If this journey into the quantum dimensions of consciousness has awakened your curiosity about how awareness might influence the fundamental patterns of reality itself, I believe you'll find our previous exploration particularly illuminating. In Quantum Frequencies, the secret behind manifestation no one talks about, we examined how quantum field effects might create the foundation for manifestation processes, revealing practical applications that beautifully complement everything we've discovered about breathing and quantum consciousness in our time together today. Until we meet again in our next exploration, breathe consciously, question deeply, and remember that every breath offers an opportunity to investigate the profound mystery of being aware in a quantum universe. The infinite laboratory of consciousness awaits your continued exploration. As patient and available as your next conscious breath, take care and breathe well. Take care and breathe well.